So, welcome to the latest edition of the AIIM Search Podcast. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Corinna Hass, the CEO and co-founder of Inga. So, Corinna boasts over 20 years of recruitment experience, and specifically a lot of that's been in the white-collar space. She worked at JP Morgan for over 10 years, and she's advised some of the fastest-growing startups in Germany. Recently, she's made a transition, setting up Inga 7 years ago into blue-collar recruitment. I'm really excited in this episode to unpack Corinna's story and specifically understand a bit more about this blue-collar opportunity that Corinna identified. Corinna, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, David.
And for those of you who don't already know who you are, Corinna, obviously I've kind of butchered the introduction, giving a super high-level overview. I'd love to kind of hear from you. Who is Corinna? Give us a bit of a background, if that's okay.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. So, as you already said, I've worked in the big corporation world for almost 11 years at JP Morgan. There, we always had a super strong employer brand, state-of-the-art employment strategy, huge HR departments, and I was able to read thousands of CVs for the application purposes and met a lot of great people, both on campus, meaning the talents that we were looking for, but also like the employees, the team leaders that were looking for new colleagues. And it was a super interesting world to kind of learn the do's and don'ts of recruiting. But in the end, I have to admit, I was a little bit fed up with the focus on those white collar and highly paid jobs in investment banking or also law and consulting. So I've done that in Frankfurt. Yeah, maybe that's also Frankfurt, Germany, an important information. And I kind of realized that 70% of the workforce out there does not work at a desk. Yeah, but is like doing some kind of labor in a larger sense. And we need that workforce to survive. It's a backbone. Same as corporations are not the main employers in Germany, but it's the small and medium-sized companies. And so that was then the reason roughly 2015, 16, 17, where I saw a problem regarding recruiting. And then I started to work on a solution. And that is how we then ended up or came up with Inga.
And talk me through, obviously, going from that kind of big corporate where you said you had a strong employer brand behind you and you're recruiting people, probably earning fantastic money, the absolute top of their game. What were the series of kind of events that opened your eyes up and made you kind of realize this problem that existed on the very other kind of side, the 70% of the workforce, as you mentioned, in Germany? What was it that kind of opened your eyes up to that problem?
Yeah. Thanks for the questions. I think that, first of all, that was a time when LinkedIn kind of started to become popular in Germany. We had a German version of it called Xing, and then everyone migrated to LinkedIn. And all those recruiting and HR people I kind of met there virtually, I realized that they had an absolute white-collar focus. For folks, white-collar means like originally like the white collar of a suit. Yeah, so people working in a suit, mainly then desk workers, versus blue collar people. In Germany, it's actually not so much a collar, but like the Bob the Builder pants. I don't know. Yeah. So I think so. That's the picture that always jumps into my mind, at least. So that was the first thing that I kind of realized that that many of the recruiting world out there is living in a certain bubble. For this bubble, it's completely normal that everyone has a CV prepared. Everyone knows what a CV is. Okay, good. And back in the day, people needed to write a cover letter, like a motivational letter, and then upload everything online. And that was something where I thought that takes a lot of motivation and time from the talent side. And then the corporations or the employers, they just sit there and wait for people to actually apply to them. And then the world of labor had changed. It became an employee market, as we would say in Germany, that the power was with the employees because there was a shortage of certain skills available. And at least in Germany specifically, it's the skilled workers, the blue collar workers that were in high demand and less offerings because, and I think that's not just in Germany, for a certain period of time, all the parents made sure that their children children would become academics, go to university, so that their life in theory might be better, and that they could have a clean job at an office earning a lot of money, and that would solve all their problems. So this meant that getting skilled workers like production, logistics, construction, any kind of service technicians, people coming home to you and repairing your heating system or repairing a machine in a production facility, on the one hand side, so those are super rare. And on the other hand side, we've all seen during COVID that also the health sector, that also the caretaking sector of older people or people with certain needs, is underpopulated in terms of workforce, as well as hotels and restaurants, and as well as teachers, for example. And other people kind of working with human beings. And so that was then something where I realized that the focus and the application systems out there are not made for those people who do not sit in front of a computer all day long.
Sure, absolutely. If I've kind of understood that correctly, well, I guess you were saying it's an employee-led market. I think when I was in recruitment, we always refer to it as like a candidate-led market, exactly sort of same thing, that it's, it's the candidates that are opening the opportunity. So in a kind of recruitment space, for example, you've got really good candidates connecting them with employers. Employers can't find them. So essentially, there was a big problem existed in Germany where 70% of the work was this deskless or blue-collar workers. These people were not on LinkedIn, were not taking advantage or leveraging LinkedIn and other kind of such platforms. So they were hidden, essentially. Yeah, there's this huge demand, lack of supply, and you've, through Inga, created a system or a mechanism by which you can kind of connect the two. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I think everything that we do in business should be target group centered. And in this case, if you are thinking about blue collar workers, and let's call them deskless workers. I prefer that a little bit. Yeah. Those deskless workers, it's important, I think, that we kind of try to think, where do they spend their time, and go to the places where they spend their free time. And that has been, back in the day, Facebook, then later on Instagram. Nowadays it's TikTok, in between, I don't know, Snapchat, whatever there is out there, maybe X, more or less nowadays. Yeah. Let's see Pinterest, like all those, let's say, social media platforms where people consume content to sometimes also try to hide from their harsh world out there or hard working conditions. And so that was the one part where I said most of those deskless workers are not actively seeking a new job opportunity. So Stepstone Monster indeed is not a platform where they would actively go. Often also something in terms of perspective, the majority of the workforce is not living in big cities. So the most population is living somewhere not off the grid, but in a rural area, and they need a car to physically go to the job. And so they have kind of a radius of 40 kilometers where they would step into the car in the morning to drive to their workspace, to their workplace. And that is something that we would need to consider. How can we reach those people? They are not reading necessarily a newspaper. And so that was then the idea, where can we reach them? And then the second thing was, how can we inform them about then the job? And I'm not a big fan of classical landing pages or the classical job description, because often the job description is not well done. I always say the job description is the peak of the iceberg after a lot of work in terms of coming up with the role description. Yeah, what do I actually need? And internally, what kind of personality do I need for the job? Skills, what is the job? Has the job changed over the last 5 years? Do I need to make changes to the old job description because we lost Bob last week to a competitor, and now we need to replace Bob? And then how do we actually then define the role? And so that is then something where we started to actually put the information in small consumable bits into a chat format. Yeah, and we also called it a chat bot. It has nothing to do with ChatGPT, because back in the day, 2017, OpenAI was already kind of working on ChatGPT, but it was not available for public use. And so that is then that we then kind of created a sexy interactive click funnel with all the informations that the potential talent would actually need. And then very importantly, no upload of a CV, because people don't have the CV available on the mobile phone. And 95% of the people are doing their applications on a smartphone with us. But why do we not just ask the questions like, what kind of apprenticeship or education do you have? How many years of experience do you have in this specific field? Are you able to work on in a 3-shift plan? Do you want to work full-time, full-time, half-time is not the right, part-time, something like that. So ask the right questions to get the feeling of the qualifications and interests of the talent. And if it's not sufficient, then the chatbot can directly say, thank you, the profile that we are offering is not suitable for what you are looking for. And so we can already filter out all those people that do not fit the minimum criteria for the role. And then we try to get people together that normally would not talk to each other about a job opportunity.
So it sounds like you created real opportunity with Inga then, where some of the kind of more legacy or some of the existing recruitment companies weren't tapping into and LinkedIn weren't tapping into because they weren't meeting the candidates where they're actually at. So you mentioned one of the big things was kind of pushing onto the platforms where, you know, these deskless workers spent most of their time on social media platforms they're on, which wasn't LinkedIn, creating something that resonated, as you mentioned, with deskless workers, as quite often the case from the recruitment industry background I've had. You know, most of the good candidates, the great candidates, are not actively looking for work. So coming up with a way of something that's going to keep them engaged, going to get them kind of bought in, and through, you know, opting or veering away from boring landing pages and generic job descriptions, you've got to create something that's a bit more engaging, but does an adequate job of vetting, you know, good from not so good talent. So talk me through, like, from a candidate's perspective then, assuming like I'm a deskless worker and I spend my time on X or Twitter or Instagram, for example. Can you talk me through like what my kind of journey, what my experience would be, just so I can kind of get my head around it?
Yeah. So in our case, it's just Facebook and Instagram. We don't do any other channels at the moment. And the important thing is that we use our brand, Dein Traumberuf, in German, which kind of translates in your dream job in English, as the brand under which we advertise those jobs. Reason behind that is that the majority, as I said, of like the employers out there are small and medium-sized companies, often B2B companies with like a big production part with little kind of end consumer brand awareness for that. And so our approach was that we would not go under the brand of our customer, but always under our brand. So that's very important as well, to kind of get rid of the employer brand bias that is out there.
Yeah.
Maybe a little information: about 25% of our customers are actually large corporations with a huge brand that everyone knows. But there is sometimes also a bias that you associate a certain job role with that brand, but would not kind of understand that, for example, banks like JP Morgan and all the other ones are major technology employers, yeah, and not just bankers. They don't just need people in finance,
yeah,
but they also need, for example, like developers, because the banking system is running on computers, right? And I don't mean service technicians. I mean people kind of programming those second trading, whatever stuff. So the user experience would be, you kind of scroll through your storyline. Yeah. And then in between everything that you officially follow, you will actually see a paid ad from us under your dream job with an interesting photo, yeah, with the creative that will capture your interest, because we know, because of the briefing. So we are doing a briefing with our customers after we've received the job description, so that we really understand what kind of person we are looking for, because an electrician for company A is maybe something different than electrician for company B, but still the photo with some kind of, let's say, cable or kind of power or something like that will kind of trigger them. And so that is our job, to actually select photos, stock photos, that will trigger something emotional within you, because we understand that you are proud of what you actually are working on every single day. Yeah, and so there must be a little bit of a recognition within this second glimpse, yeah, when you scroll through, that you stop and actually take some time and check the ad. Yeah. And then you have all the information, like all the benefits and what kind of role it is in the ad. And then you can click the CTA, the call to action. Of course, is then please apply now. And then if you click on that, then the chatbot that has specifically been written for this one role will then open up, and then within 3 minutes you can click. We try to not use a lot of typing fields, but a lot of clicking. So, easy to also do while you're watching soccer, while you are listening at a family event to a boring speech of your uncle or whatever. And so it's easy to actually then understand everything and click through. Yeah, make it as easy and as low maintenance as possible. And give a lot of information about the role as well.
I find it fascinating when you kind of talk about almost like the psychology or removing the friction there as well. All the elements, it's not just solving a technical or a non-technical recruiting problem. It's meeting candidates where they're at. So you identified they're not on LinkedIn, they're on these social media platforms, inviting them to apply for a role in the traditional route of you see a LinkedIn job advert, putting that on Instagram probably isn't going to garner a positive enough response rate because people aren't actively looking and they're not going to be curious enough. Take them to Greenhouse or one of the typical kind of ATS systems or usual kind of landing pages for applying for jobs is not going to engage people in the right way. Asking them to upload a CV isn't going to be the answer. So you've taken all that in, you've taken all the market feedback, really understood the problem, understood the kind of the psychology and all the friction elements as well, and removed all that friction and created something that, your 3-minute interview or 3-minute application process basically means that people can get that instant feedback. They don't need full attention rewriting their CV for every job that's there. I think that's fascinating. For a business that is kind of fundamentally a technology business, one of the things on our previous conversation that really interested me, and I hope you don't mind me asking, is you've deliberately avoided jumping on the AI bandwagon. Talk to me, around the decision to do that. So many others have, maybe not been as strong and have jumped on that, opening for higher valuations and riding the wave. Why has that been such an important decision for you?
When we started 2017, there was, out of my perspective, hardly any real AI application out there. It was machine learning, it was big data analysis, and like the parts before kind of Gen AI. And so, sorry for the language, but I think it was kind of just bullshitting around using that AI word to make yourself more interesting. Integrity is one of the values of Inga, and also kind of putting the human being in the center of everything we do. Yeah, I say we are automatisierte Manufaktur, so we are kind of an automated manufacturer. But in German, the word Manufaktur and manufacturing in English differs a little bit. It's like a boutique. It's like if you go to a shoe maker who still makes 200 pounds handmade shoes. Right? Yeah. So we are those people where we actually want that we want the shoe to fit. Yeah. It's not one size fits all. It's and back in the day, AI was still not able to kind of outsmart human beings. And because recruiting for me will always be a human's game. Yeah. And I always say that through the briefing, for example, I want my people to understand with the mind, with the heart, and with the gut, what kind of personality they are looking for, or we are looking for our client. And still, AI nowadays is still not able to be better in that as a human being. So that was part one. On the other side, I have to say that we are highly automated in our own work processes. And that, of course, we also use certain nowadays Gen AI and stuff like that. And we've also looked into picture generation back in the day with DALL-E, or we will also be looking into Sora for videos and stuff like that. So we are trying to always stay up to date on what's the offering out there. But we ourselves, we will not become an AI company, but I'm absolutely open and actively looking for networking with AI providers to find suitable applications for their AI tools that we can plug in, like then maybe user experience on a talent side, but also user experience on the HR side. Because one thing that also what we are aiming for is to make HR the center of excellence again, like a real sparring partner for the business inside, and to help them use their precious time to spend with people. Yeah, so let humans do human work by using technology to do technology stuff. And so that is the main reason that AI for me is a tool that we kind of use, but we will not become an AI company, but we will use AI.
I appreciate that, and it's so interesting. Coincidentally, I was reading The Coming Wave just before it was mentioning in there. It was like the frenzy phase, and it seems like we're in the frenzy phase where everything, and that's why I asked the question, is tacking on AI and riding that AI wave. I was at a cybersecurity conference, the biggest one in San Francisco last year, and everyone's got AI on their banner somewhere. And I think it's interesting when, even for me, when I'm reaching out to kind of businesses and speaking to people, the fact they take a call from me, I guess, is testament alone that there's a problem out there that exists. And I think when there's all these vendors out there branding themselves as AI, you almost want to find a problem rather than wanting to find a reason to work with someone. You're wanting to find the problem. And I think fundamentally with a lot of these solutions out there that try and automate the entire end-to-end process and then completely disregarding the bits that humans are better at, it's going to upset people in some way, no matter how good the tool can be. Yep. Or the platform can be, when there's seemingly a disregard for actually the humans can be better in some manner. It's going to be incredibly daunting from a buyer's perspective to buy something that literally automates an entire process. And instead, I guess, kind of offering or positioning your solution as complementing and enhancing human capabilities is far less of a mental shift, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I also think that AI and digitalization and change management are three words that mean everything and nothing. Yeah, they are three huge buzzwords, and they need to be filled with kind of life and real action. And I have seen the digitalization in Germany failing because it's a change management process where the human being needs to be part of. And you cannot just put technology out there and force people to accept it. And the same mistake we are doing now with AI, because to be honest, implementing AI tools is just one part of digitalization. And so I hope that now with implementation of AI tools, again, the human is in the center of the change management process, because you need the humans to understand that AI is a tool and it's worth using it because it will make your life easier. But again, the AI tool by itself is nothing if it's not being trained. Yeah. And for me, AI agents are kind of the next step to have AI colleagues. Yeah. If you want to humanize than the AI agent, and they will be kind of your assistant, and they will take over all the tasks that you are not so good at or that you do not want to do because it's kind of repetitive, uninteresting, uninspiring stuff, and free up time for your pleasure and your purpose, and where you as a human being at the workforce are still better than any machine. And that for me is might be a utopia, but it's a very attractive utopia. That people only need to do what they want to do. But last sentence, David, AI will not replace the skilled workers. Yeah, I think at the moment we are in the exploration phase where companies out there are trying to find usages, like use cases, where to put AI. Yeah, because nowadays, like also with funding and stuff like that, founding is, okay, I want to do an AI startup. Yeah, let's find a use case. And for me, founding was always the other way around. Yeah, it was kind of, okay, I see a problem, I want a solution. What can the solution be? Yeah. And so first of all, I think that's the better approach than, okay, now that we have AI, now let's find a use case for it. And so, yes, the coexistence, and in using AI as a tool is my utopia. And I think there are AI use cases also in all those skilled workers, in the deskless workers world out there to make their lives easier. Let's be it kind of project planning or kind of figuring out the logistics route. I've read a kind of prognosis where AI will be super useful. And in the diagnostic, for example, AI will be probably mind-blowing. But the actual care of the human being, putting an injection into an arm, stroking someone or doing a surgery and being in a wake-up room, I cannot imagine that a robot that then kind of might be around as well will be as soothing as a human being. I think the healthcare system used to be a dream job because it's a passion. And in the healthcare system nowadays, you have, I don't know, 2.5 minutes per patient to wash them and to clean them and to make sure that they are comfortable. And I think it would be such a better life out there if AI and robots would be there to then free up time so that human feeling being can spend 10 minutes with a patient. And so that's my wish, to use AI to free up more time for human beings.
To do the most impactful and purposeful things we can do, which robots can't yet replicate. Perfect. Corinna, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a joy finding out, this deskless worker opportunity you've uncovered, identifying this problem, really sort of understanding the problem from the candidate, the deskless workers perspective, meeting them where they're at and creating, a chatbot, not jumping on the AI hype. I've loved this story. I love finding out how you've built the company, what you've done, what your kind of predictions are going forward. It's been a pure pleasure from my perspective, Corinna. Any kind of closing thoughts from you?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good questions. And I also liked kind of the way where we are going. And I think we covered important stuff. And I hope that the listeners or viewers also could take some information away.
I'm sure they will. I've certainly taken plenty. So thank you again, Corinna, and thank you to the listeners who have tuned into this episode.